What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Welcome back to another press conference reaction. Yes, Erik ten Hag has spoken to the assembled media at Carrington ahead of tomorrow's Premier League clash against Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The game, the top four, is in our hands. Truly, it is in our hands. And tomorrow you do get the feeling, don't you, that if, and it's a big if because it's the Premier League, it's football, it's an away game against a side that's in the top 12, and we've only won one game away from home against sides in the top 12, that being against Fulham last year prior to the World Cup. It's still a big if, but coming off Tottenham's devastating defeat against Newcastle at the weekend, given the circumstances, as I mentioned, the top four, importance of this game, the Champions League future of this game is a significant one. So Ten Hag's been answering questions to the assembled media, discussing injury news, team news, talking about Bruno Fernandes. Yes, there's a lot of discussion and debate surrounding Manchester United's real captain, let's be honest, the person that's captained Manchester United the most this season, because of course he came off against Brighton in the FA Cup semi-final, didn't take a penalty, he suffered an injury in the first half, but played nearly the majority of the game. Then photos were going around on social media of Bruno in a protective boots, and then there were people saying, oh, it's just a precaution, other people were saying, oh, he's going to be injured. I saw a statistic today, and I don't know if this is actually accurate, you can let me know in the live chat, but someone was saying that Bruno Fernandes has never missed a game through injury that is, in his entire professional career. And I thought that cannot be correct, can it? But apparently that's true. The only games he's missed is by suspension. So that's nuts. So the fact that he could be missing a game through injury, is pretty significant. So Ten Hag has spoken on that, and kind of, as you would expect when it comes to injuries, and Ten Hag kind of left it up in the air, saying, we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what happens. It is a protective measure, but the game is tomorrow, so there's not a lot of time. The swelling still has to go down. We have to wait and see. So certainly a lot of interesting discussion points as we head into tomorrow's game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner as you filter in. I'm early. Oh, yes. I'm making up for Monday. People are still saying about Monday, going, hey, Owen, match day reloaded. You were 30 minutes late. And I say, I refuse to take any blame. It wasn't my fault, yeah? What it was technical issues at UVHQ, and I refuse. As anyone would do here on United View, I'm taking zero responsibility for that. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of someone, doesn't it? Yeah, kind of reminds me. I can't really put my finger on who it reminds me of. Yeah, nevertheless. So there you go. And Nathan, one of our members, has got the Owen emojis going. Oh, yes, he's got the Owen emojis going. We put actually out to all of our members because there's so many. Oh, my goodness me. There is so many new members recently. We put a members post out saying, what new emojis do you want to see? Because you know us, if you're a UV member, there are emojis aplenty. I'm sure one of you will put all of them up right now. And we put a members post out saying, which new emojis would you like to see? Custom emojis. So let us know. Go on the post. We've got some really good ideas for that. And also, another episode of UV Raw dropped last night. Yeah, last night, a new UV Raw episode dropped. The Football Content Awards, which seems like a lifetime ago. Oh, the travel. Oh, go watch it. Go watch it, because that travel to Manchester was quite an interesting one that day, certainly. Myself, KG, Flex and Josh all in one car. What could go wrong? And staying in one house as well. What could go wrong? It seems like a terrible reality show, doesn't it? Nevertheless, let's get on to the questions that Ten Hag was answering in the press conference ahead of tomorrow's Premier League clash in North London. The first question was Simon Peachy, and he was asking, obviously, team news. How's team news looking? Because he's got it. He's got it. I mean, it wouldn't be a press conference without Simon Peach saying, look, what's the team news? What's the state of play when it comes to the Manchester United players? He said, obviously, you went the distance on Sunday, so how's the squad looking, Eric? Ten Hag said, quotes, there are some unavailable. Martinez, or as Kenny would say, Mertens, Varane. We have to see how Bruno Fernandes is. We don't know yet. He is a question mark. I think for the rest, we are quite okay. So the biggest question mark, really, is Bruno Fernandes. Is Bruno Fernandes going to be playing? As far as all the other people, they came for it relatively unscathed. You could argue maybe tiredness and something like that. But in terms of actual injuries, i.e. people not going to be available, we know Martinez and Varane aren't available. Varane, it's really a race against time for the FA Cup final. There's been so much back and forth on that, hasn't there? Of, oh, he's not going to be ready. Oh, he might be ready. Well, thankfully, it's in the beginning of June, so there is still time. There's about 5 weeks or so to the FA Cup final, so that is possible. I've seen some people speculating that maybe Martinez could be available for the FA Cup final, which if that is the case, again, that would be interesting to see, but I think that won't be a bit soon for him. But we're focusing about tomorrow. We're talking about tomorrow, aren't we? So tomorrow, certainly, is the game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and Bruno Fernandes is the big question. As Ten Hag said, we don't know yet. He's a question mark. I think for the rest, we're quite okay. Now, the follow-up question about that regarding Bruno and his injury was, we saw him in a protective boot. There was crutches. Was that because it was a serious injury, or was that to just avoid anything worse happening to him, to his foot, to his ankle, whatever the injury may be? And Ten Hag said, quote, "It's more often that players, we protect them, prevention, but it has to settle down. We have seen he," referring to Bruno, "played a full game and it happened in the first half. But tomorrow is quick. We have to see what is possible." So he's not ruling it out. He's not suggesting that Bruno is definitely out. He's not suggesting that Bruno definitely isn't going to play, which is interesting. Now, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because as I said when I started out the stream, started out the show, started out the video, whatever you want to call it, that my feeling is with this game tomorrow is it's really, really, really important because we are 6 points ahead of them with 2 games in hand. And you would argue that the top 4, because of that, could be, even if there was a draw, you'd go, yeah, United are pretty much nailed on when it comes to that, to be honest. But if we beat Spurs 9 points ahead with 2 games in hand, if we were to win our games in hand, which again, it's not a given, but let's say we did, 15 points ahead, I mean, game over, really, isn't it? Game over. That's top 4 sealed. And I don't know. And it's funny, actually, because I'm not sure if I've seen enough people sort of discussing it like this. But tomorrow, this feels a bit like a cup final to me. Like, beat Spurs, it's done, essentially. Mathematically, obviously, it's not. But for all intents and purposes, it's done. If they get the top 4, if we beat Spurs tomorrow, I can't see people catching us. I know Aston Villa are up to 5th, but we've got 3 games in hand over them or something like that. People talking about Liverpool, but I still think they're a way off. So I think put them to the sword tomorrow. And like I said, it's over. So that might be something that is playing in the mind of Ten Hag, because he might just think, if this was a game that didn't have so much riding on it, I maybe wouldn't take the risk. And I'd say, we'll wait and see. If he's not 100%, we're not going to risk it. But given the importance of it, maybe you do play Bruno for 45 minutes or 60 minutes and just see how it goes, because given how fragile Spurs are, particularly after that result of the weekend, they are right there for the taking. I know that Stellini's gone and new interim manager bounce, whatever you want to call it, that might play a part in it, and they're going to want to bounce back, and a lot of this press conference was speaking about bouncing back and what have you. But at the same time, I feel like this is a real big opportunity for United to really nip it in the bud earlier than maybe we expected to. Because I think a couple of weeks ago, even after Seville, after we lost in Seville last Thursday, there was kind of a general feeling of, top 4, let's not throw this away. Let's not, make sure that we bottle this one. We're in a good place here. We've put ourselves in a good position. Is the whole season going to crumble around us? And a week later, 7 days later, to be in the position where you're like, well, basically we can secure it. It would be near enough done before we've even got into May with 6 or 7 games remaining. I don't think anyone was anticipating that, really. The sort of top 4, for a long time, it was the top 2 miles away, and they still are, obviously. They play each other this evening. But for the rest of the people competing for the top 4, it was still fairly close. There was sort of us, Newcastle, Spurs, but the expectation was, Brighton, they're a bit close, or Liverpool, even though they're a bit further away, they might get back into it. But over the last couple of weeks, it really has felt like, hasn't it, that Newcastle and ourselves have just kind of pulled away, and the top 4 race maybe isn't going to be as competitive as we thought it was going to be. And as I said, given how it can really be done, not mathematically done, but near enough done tomorrow, I think it's worth the risk of saying, you know what, Bruno, we'll see what happens. Let's put you on for 45 minutes. Let's put you on for 60, or however long you can go. Let's put you on because you're too important. We need your leadership. And also because hopefully, Harry Maguire won't be playing, so we need that captain-like figure out there. So Ten Hag's not ruling it out. Again, and the thing is with Ten Hag, sometimes in these press conferences, you can tell when he's being coy. You can tell when he's playing maybe some mind games, even though he doesn't really play that many, but you can tell when he's just purposely being vague on the situation. I think legitimately, when he was speaking in this press conference, he's like, I don't know. I don't know. The only thing he sort of really wanted to get across was that it's not as bad as some people are making out. The reason he's wearing a protective boot is because that's just what we want them to do. We even if they've got a slight knock, we say, wear this, protect yourself, elevate it, do whatever, so we can get you back sooner rather than later and you don't do any worse damage. So, I mean, maybe I should put a poll in the chat. I'll put a poll in the chat as to whether you think Bruno starts tomorrow or if Bruno's going to be involved. I mean, what's the better question? Does Bruno start or is Bruno involved? I'll put start. Will Bruno start tomorrow? Question mark. My feeling is, honestly, that he might. There's something in me that says Ten Hag might take that risk because of the importance of the game. I could be wrong. Could be miles off on this one. But there's just... I feel like he might take the risk. DJ's in the chat. Big up, DJ. Big up on the match views recently. Excellent job. Says, big up, Owen. Big up yourself, DJ. Certainly. Sashiv says, big up, Owen. Is KG doing a hate-along? Sashiv, come on. It's Arsenal versus Manchester City. Of course, KG, that comedian, is doing a hate-along. I mean, it's what he was made for. It's what he was put on this planet to do, is hate. And you've got the perfect opportunity to hate this evening. So, of course, he's going to be doing a hate-along. He'll be doing that on his channel later on this evening. We'll get back to the poll as we get some more votes in. But, yeah, let me know your thoughts if you think Bruno's going to start or not. Or Bruno, if he's going to even be involved or not. And if not, when do you think he'll be back for? And be sure to smash the like on the like button too. The next question was put to Ten Hag, saying, you've come into a few of these press conferences this season, talking about having to bounce back from devastating defeats. Your opposition number... this week, tomorrow, has to do the exact same thing. And Ten Hag said, whoa. Not that often. Sometimes, but not that often. Not so often we've had to bounce back. He said, quote, it was not so often we had to bounce back. It happens with all great teams. Real Madrid, huh? It's obvious they had a really bad defeat. Them being Spurs. Pronouns, pal. Of course, they are mad. That can be fuel for bounce backing, which I love that word. That can be fuel for bounce backing. It's about us. An opponent can never be more hungry than us. That is how we have to prepare for the game and make sure we go front foot, be dominant and dictate the game. And I was thinking about this too when I was sort of doing my notes for the press conference and Ten Hag was saying that. We are in a very interesting situation tomorrow. If they had Stellini still as their interim coach, you'd be going into that very, very confident. I still think a lot of United fans are going into the game fairly confident tomorrow. But not that we should be afraid of it, but we do have to be, and this is something I was talking about with, I think it was Flex yesterday on the Morning View. We do have to be cognizant that this won't be the exact same Spurs that played at St. James's Park on Sunday. And I know you'll say, well, oh, what difference can 4 days make? Well, we've seen it in recent history that, you know, you go from a manager, like, for instance, when we had Ollie, realistically, there was no massive difference that he made in terms of the players that were available, but he got a bounce because he took the shackles off and he just lifted the mood, really. And that's why people said that, you know, Stellini being in interim charge for the remainder of the season made zero sense because he was Conte's right-hand man, essentially. So you get rid of Conte, but you keep the spirit of Conte in terms of the tactics and around the club. It makes zero sense because nothing will really change. And nothing really did change. The style of football was largely the same. The fossil football, as expressions like to call it, was largely the same. And the atmosphere, everything was basically the same, but just to a lesser quality because you don't have Conte. But again, his ideas are still there. So if Ryan Mason was smart for Spurs, tomorrow against United, he would just take the shackles off and say, you know, we're not going to be playing defensive. We're going to try and play offensive football, attacking football, and we're going to try and see what happens. And sometimes, again, just taking those shackles off can make a big difference. And United need to be aware of that. That's it. I think United just need to be cautious of that, and United need to do really what they haven't done this season away from home, and that's manage the atmosphere. Because after that result on Sunday, after the manager or the interim manager going, I think the atmosphere will be fairly good inside that stadium for 10, 15 minutes, as long as they're playing well, as long as they're trying. So it's upon United to manage that atmosphere, manage the game, take the sting out of it. And if you can get an early goal, then the atmosphere will switch like that. And then they'll go, oh my goodness, nothing's changed. We're still shit. Ryan Mason's just the same as Stellini and Conte, blah, blah, blah. That's what they need to do, United, tomorrow. My only worry with that is just we haven't done it. We haven't done that this season, realistically, have we? You know, in terms of how many times have we done these kind of press conferences where we've said, manage the atmosphere, manage the occasion, quiet the crowd, all that kind of stuff, and we haven't really done that away from home against some of the bigger sides. So I think that's my only thing I'm really concerned about tomorrow, is just that the circumstances are somewhat different. And I think that's something we need to be aware of. And we need to be cautious that just because they lost 6-1 on Sunday, the first 10, 15 minutes, they're going to be up for it. They are going to be up for it. Because they have to be. They refunded the fans their tickets. So there is a huge expectation that they'll show up. And so I think they'll start fast. So it's upon United just to be like, okay, weather that first 10 minutes and then move on. You know, as Ten Hag said, that can be fuel for them to bounce back. But the principle is they can never be more hungry than us. We have to have the mentality, like I said earlier, we can secure the Champions League football tomorrow. Done. You know, mathematically, yes, not completely done, but near enough. Put them to the sword and make them feel worse about themselves. Make them feel like, oh, nothing's changed. It's never going to get fixed. It's Spurs, you know. That's what we need to do. But the circumstances are different in this one. And I don't think, you know, we can't go into this one overconfident, I think. I think if we go in with the mentality of, you know, they lost 6-1, it's going to happen again. No, that's not going to be the case. I think it's going to be a more gritty fighting Spurs because they're at home and because of what happened and the new manager. So we need to be aware of that, and we can't be arrogant, I think, going into it. We're not at that point yet, you know, and again, particularly away from home. So there you go. The follow-up question to that was to Ten Hag about bouncing back, as Ryan Mason and Spurs have to do tomorrow, was how have you done it on the occasions that it's happened this season? You've got good players, so when they don't play well, what do you tell them? And he said, quote, it's not always the same. It depends on what the reason is behind it. Depending on the reason, you tell them. It's situational leadership, I call it. You take the lead, you give the message. It depends on the occasion. And what was quite interesting with this is that when he said situational leadership, I mean, to me, that seems a pretty self-explanatory word, i.e., it's leadership dependent on the situation, dependent on the circumstances of what's happening in that moment or what has happened and what happened previously. And again, your leadership depends on the situation. They couldn't get that. The room was very confused by it. What? It's called situational leadership. What does that mean? Eric, what does that mean? Take the lead based on the situation. I mean, you know. Heaven forbid he actually says actual sayings where he's from. The cow and the arsing again. Don't even get me started on that. So, as he says, it was case by case every single time, you know. It depends on the situation. That's it. And he did mention this also as well in a later response to one of the questions where he said, you know, we've bounced back a lot of times this season. We did it last week. We lost in Seville and then we won on penalties against Brighton, a difficult game. You know, we lost against Brentford, then we beat Liverpool. You know, we've bounced back in those games and we've managed to do good things by bouncing back this season. But the next step is it shouldn't be that we have a terrible defeat and then we go, right, on to the next game. It should be, no, there's a setback during the game, i.e. you go 1-0 down away from home, or even if you go 2-0 down away from home, and then you go, actually, we're going to react in the game and still get something out of this game. Not go 1-0 down and be like, it's over, next time, next time, better luck next time. We'll be back next time, don't worry about it. Next time, we'll bounce back. No, bounce back in the game. No more of next time. That's the next step. And again, I think tomorrow is going to be a really good example of that because I think there could be a situation, given Spurs having a fast start, the atmosphere being up, Spurs could go 1-0 up, but they're fragile. They should be in a position where they're more fragile than us, mentally. Even if they go 1-0 up tomorrow, they should think, oh my God, we're 1-0 up. How on earth are we going to hold on to this? And United should then break them down. It's upon us. That's the key thing tomorrow for me. Composure. Remain composed. Don't panic. regardless of what happens. If you go 1-0 down, or if in the first 10 minutes the atmosphere's up, or if they don't start at all and we go 1-0 up, or we go 2-0 up, composure. Just do not lose your head. Do not panic and just manage the game. That's the key thing tomorrow. I think if we manage the game, manage the crowd, I think we beat them. But we just got to be careful. This could be a sticky situation. I know people laugh like, "Hey, Spurs," and all that kind of stuff, but they're vulnerable. They're wounded at the moment, and that's why we need to be careful. Let's take a look at the poll. Been up for about 10 minutes, over 120 votes. The question was, will Bruno start tomorrow? It's pretty close. 55% of you say no. 45% say yes. I should have maybe done a third option, shouldn't I? I should have said something like, will Bruno start? Yes, no. Or maybe he'll be like bench or not in the squad, something like that. I maybe should have done more. Yeah. But you live in hindsight. You know, I'll bounce back next time. Next question was, what sort of significance do you put on this game when it comes to the top four? How significant would a win be? And again, one of those questions that in press conferences, he's going to go, no, not very significant at all. Which, you know, of course it's significant. And he said, quote, very significant. You see the table. It's quite clear. But our approach will not change. Our approach is we want to win every game. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. But as I mentioned previously, in my opinion, I think tomorrow is really, really significant. I think if we win tomorrow, it's done. That's it. If we win tomorrow, the situation is resolved. Done. No problem. Top four sealed. It's upon ourselves not to let these other teams feel like they have a fighting chance, and that's what we've got to do. Certainly, some people are making some very good points. I must say in the chat I just mentioned the poll was in there, as Tabislol says, one of our long-time members, moderators. Big up Tabislol, saying. You can see it on the screen. There is more votes than likes. Now, if you say his name enough times, he may end up appearing, Mr. Phelan. And, you know, we don't want him. We don't want him to appear because he's a very angry man. He's a very angry person. If you tuned into the FIFA stream yesterday, he hijacked it. I believe he was screaming at people. He might have been cursing at people. He might have said some very regrettable things. And we don't want that. We don't want that for the press conference reactions. They're quite light-hearted, you know. They're fun. They're quite interactive. So, you know, if the likes don't go up, I mean, I don't want to be passive-aggressive. I don't want to gaslight you to do the likes or anything like that. But we don't want to enter that territory. That's all I'm saying. You know, we don't want to do that. We don't want to have to bounce back later on in the stream. You know, that's what we don't want to do. Oh, no, he's already... It's not. Even Eric can do a thumbs up. You can click the thumbs up too. That's all you need to do. Even Eric can do it. Yeah? I mean, when I saw Mr. Phelan show up then for a second saying, I'm not happy. It's concerning. It's worrying. So, you know, he's not happy, and I'm sure he'll hijack soon. It's definitely not Josh either, because I know Josh is busy today. So, you know, if you haven't already, click the like button. I mean, we're still under 100. It's a disgrace. It's a cheat. Maybe I'll have to go on strike. Maybe I'll have to. What can I click on here that would make me go on strike? Maybe I'll just leave. What happens if I do that? Well, I'll do the rest of the show like this. Ghost settings. So the next question, I mean, I'll do it. I'll do it. As Josh says, he's very busy, Mr. Phelan. They're different people. And I'm gone now, so who's putting that up? The ghost of Owen is here. Maybe just to host the show, it will just be shocked gifts and stuff like that. Yeah, ghost. I'm not even clicking anything, so I'm not here. So what could that be? Now, I do worry if people have just tuned in as to what they will think is happening right now. But this has gone off the rails. I'm very easily distracted with this kind of stuff. Yeah. So DR says until at least 100 likes. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'm gone again. Yeah, that's what I'll do until we get to 100. I'm going on strike. Jason says Owen's looking like Marcel the other day. Ghost settings. He was very Force Ghost-ish. We're 7 likes away from 100. I'll continue it. I don't care. Keegan says passive aggressive. It's not passive aggressive. It's just doing what's right. Yeah, that's what it is. It's doing what's right. Going on strike. What else do people want to talk about? whilst we wait till we're 2 likes away. 2 likes away from there we go. I can come back. You've set me free. Look at that. So all it took was sheer grit, determination, protest, strikes. It was that's what we had to do. Makish says, great question. What's for lunch, Owen? Well, I haven't had my lunch yet. Yeah. I haven't had it yet. Probably me and KG are still doing. I say I'm doing the diet thing. I don't know what KG's doing. KG's been away in Nigeria, so I don't know how much he's been sticking to the diet. So I don't know. I haven't had my lunch yet though. It's gonna be healthy though. That's what it's gonna be. Jack says tantrum really. Oh, you would know. You would know, Jack, when I throw a tantrum. Okay, it's very expletive. Josh has heard a couple of them. Yeah, Josh has got some very angry voice notes in the past, not directed at him, just usually something completely innocuous and ridiculous, and it's got nothing to do with actually anything that's worth being angry about. That's it. Makish also says KG's been eating rather. Is it? How do you say it? Agege bread. Is that how you say it? I think. Because I saw him reference this in a fan view that he did, which I believe is soft bread. I believe. I could be wrong. I've said several times that I want KG to cook for me and Flex as well, but, you know, it's not happened yet. Completely lost where I am as well. Don't know what question I'm meant to be doing next. Oh, yes, Harry Kane. Yes, Harry Kane, the Spurs striker, the danger man for Spurs tomorrow. Ten Hag was asked about Harry Kane. How are you going to manage him? I thought when they brought up Harry Kane, they were going to ask him about United's interest, because that's really picked up, hasn't it, over the last week or so. But he was asked about how do United keep Kane quiet tomorrow. It's got to be Kane. He said, quote, it's quite clear his impact on the game from Spurs. We have a plan for that, and home game we did very well. So for tomorrow, we need a very good plan as well. You have to defend as a team. He's a clever player. Don't allow him to come into situations. He can have a big impact on the game. And it is true, obviously against United at Old Trafford, he was very quiet, but so was Spurs, just in general. That game, it was 2-0 at Old Trafford, and we dominated them. I mean, it wasn't even close. 2-0, if anything, flatters them. Fred played, and he was brilliant. And remember, this is what's crazy with Spurs this season, is the other time they were like third, and they were somewhat still like in the race of going, well, they're not a million miles behind Arsenal and City, because this was back in October, I think it was. So actually they're still not that far behind. But any United fan over the last few years, because we've lived this, can tell you that you can only get away with it for so long. And at the time, in October and September, when all those Spurs fans were saying, yeah, but we're still winning games, Conte's winning games, and people going, yeah, but you're playing badly, you're not playing well, the wheels will come off. And that's what happened with us last year under Ollie. It was scraping through games, but people going, the wheels are going to come off. They always do. And they did. And when we played them at Old Trafford, they were nowhere near us. But as I mentioned at the same time, that's not the same Spurs. It's different. So that's what we've got to be. That's what we've got to be aware of. As Josh says, it's not sustainable. No, it's not. Like myself and KG's diets, they're not sustainable. You know, we're heading for disaster, obviously. Next question was bouncing back there. There was a lot of talk about bouncing back in this press conference, as I mentioned. Bouncing back there. How impressed are you with the characters you have in your squad? What does that say about the players? How many times they've bounced back this season? He said, quote, they are resilient. They are able to do it. It's not easy, but they can do it. Now you can do it. Now we have to make the next step to do it in games where you have a setback. You can have a bad setback, but show your character and personality in a game to bounce back. Which is what I was saying earlier on, isn't it? Is that there still is, and this has been the case for years at United. It's been really prevalent over the last few years. But if you go 1-0 down, the mentality can't be the game's over. Like, we've lost. Like, you can come back. If Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson, and I hate to be that guy that goes, well, under Sir Alex, because Sir Alex hasn't been around in a decade. But under Sir Alex, if United had the mentality of if they concede the opening goal, or they go 1-0 down or 2-0 down, they've lost, we'd probably have half the titles that we actually do. Because it didn't matter. If you go 1-0 down, it doesn't matter. You can come back and win it. If you go 2-0 down, it doesn't matter. Look, I won the Champions League in '99. We scored 2 goals in the last 2 minutes or in stoppage time. That's not it's never over. It's never over. That's the point. And for whatever reason, we've kind of got into this mentality, or this group of players has got into this mentality of concede a goal, it's done, we're screwed. And it's not. Again, tomorrow, we could very well go 1-0 down because they're going to start fast and the stadium's going to be up for it. If that is the case, take a step back and say, look, they're still not great. They're fragile. The crowd will be worried. We can get a goal. We can come back. And that's what we need to do. The only times that we were really coming back in the last sort of decade or so consistently was under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but that was when there was no one in the stadiums, because that's the problem. They can't manage, for whatever reason, that intensity, that pressure, that atmosphere. And that's the next step, as Ten Hag says. It's not a case of bouncing back after the fact in the next game, bouncing back during the game. And I hope to see it tomorrow. I mean, hopefully we don't actually have to bounce back. Hopefully we just smooth sail the whole way through the game. But you never know. Football's a strange one like that. And the players are resilient. As Ten Hag said, they've done it already this season, just not in the game. They've done it in the next game. Finally, the last question was, how important is it that you leave your team? And they have... this was a strange question. It was basically saying, how important is it as a manager when they have those bad defeats that you essentially sort of don't do your job, and you lead them to figure it out for themselves, essentially. It's not always about the manager. And is that something that Spurs have to do? And Ten Hag said, well, I'm not in that position. I'm the Man United manager, not the Spurs manager. We are in another place. I have to make sure our players are ready tomorrow against a good opponent, a good team, good players. I have focus. They have energy. So I think what the journalist was trying to suggest is that how important is it to have those sort of senior figures that can take leadership themselves, which of course is very important, but it was an odd question to put out. It was very, very strange. But there you go. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, guys, as I mentioned. Short stream, but it was a short press conference and a very uneventful press conference. The biggest thing to take away from it was that Bruno might play tomorrow, or he might not. We don't know. We're still trying to figure that out. They're still trying to figure it out. The protective boot was just a precaution, but there's still time to go, so he still could be involved. In terms of the poll in the chat, will Bruno start tomorrow? The majority are saying no. 58% of you are saying no, he won't start. 42% are saying yes, which also as well, there's 213 votes, 122 likes. The like to vote ratio concerns me. Yeah, it worries me. That's the concern. Jason says, just like Arsenal's title charge, well, this is going to be a very interesting one tonight. I saw Robbie did his rallying cry that I'm sure definitely won't get sort of, clipped up and thrown around and possibly added to a famous soundboard or something like. I don't know. Maybe I'm just putting things out there. Who knows? Who knows these things? You never know how it's going to work out. But as I mentioned, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Red Room was this morning at 9 o'clock, so you can still check that out. That's up on the channel. Later on this evening, I believe there's going to be a preview. Flex and Abby previewing the game tomorrow at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Then, of course, tomorrow, we're also going to be having a full match day experience. So road trip settings, match view settings, fan view settings. And here's hoping, again, we get the job done, get a big away victory, and near enough secure that Champions League football. I'm out of here. Have a great Wednesday afternoon, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.